Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is a show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. And today, on the 8th of April, 2019, we are taking a look at the third story of the fourth series of the Fourth Doctor Adventures, and the third story in a trilogy of stories featuring the Rocketmen, with Requiem for the Rocketmen. Now, the Rocketmen appeared in a trilogy of... Basically, they started by appearing in two Companion Chronicles, which I didn't cover through the marathon. But you don't really need too much of the other stories, except that the Doctor's beaten them before and taken them out twice. Because the rest of the content and the context needed is really just here for the story. Now, as an episode, one of the very nice things is that it sort of really makes it feel like it's the trilogy, because the story actually opens with a little bit of narration from Leela, not really being, not to explain like this is the story, but it's this nice little when did you know scene. Now, because there's quite a bit here that, like the original Rocketman story, deals with an idea of love, which I will get to a little bit later, because the biggest aspect is that the Doctor and Leela arrive on a shopping world, where, well, they find out the Rocketmen have put a bounty on the Doctor's head, basically because, he's interfered in... It's basically you interfered in our plans for the last time, Doctor. So now you're going to die. Or you're going to be killed by us. The Rocketmen are coming for our vengeance, essentially. It's, it's an interesting plot. Now, what's interesting is that this also not only features the Rocketmen, but it also features the Master, as played by Jeffrey Beavers. And yet not a... this isn't treated like a twist. It's not, it's not a big twist, at the end of the episode, because why would it be? It's one of those stories where, where we know the Master's here. They're not attempting to make it. They don't attempt to make it a twist. But they do have, the Master essentially working together in an attempt to capture the Doctor. Now, what a lot of this first, but also it seems that somehow, now it's not entirely explained, but K9 has actually been working with the Master, which is just weird, because a lot of this story there seems to be this jump in the narrative after the beginning of the story where it doesn't quite give us all the answers that we need to understand really what's going on. Again, John Leeson plays K9, here, but yeah, a lot of the, a lot of the story really just has the Doctor and Leela attempting to figure stuff out. Now they eventually have it so that Leela takes the Doctor in as to be prisoner of the Rocketmen, which was it was a very nice little story. The way that they do that is that you have Leela. Then you get a chance to show her off her hunter stuff as she's hunted by one of the Rocketmen, because of course the Master recognizes her. And it's one of those good things. Like their plan fails. Now, a lot of this episode you don't really know exactly what the Master's planning, partially because this is just his first. This is just the first episode of in what's going to be. It's basically going to be a 4-part story spread over 2 releases. Like several other stories have done. So you have a lot of really, really good setup. Now, there's but there's also something very, very interesting with what happens with Leela by the end of this story. Mainly that by the end of this episode is that she actually starts to fall in love with one of the rocket men. There's this character called Marshall who is sent to hunt her, and they really start to hit it off as characters, and they really sort of show, this nice little connection between the characters, and it sort of feeds into that narration of when do you know it might be time to say goodbye to the Doctor? When do you know it might be time to move on from traveling, and giving it just a break, knowing that, hey, I've traveled with the Doctor for a really long time. Let's be honest, that's what Leela has done. She has traveled with the Doctor for a long, long while. But so how do I know that maybe it's time to put up her traveling shoes and move on to different pastures. Um, it's very it's very well done with where the story goes, and just about everything really builds up to the characters saying essentially building to a cliffhanger, and it's something that is very, very important is that we can build to a cliffhanger. Again, Tom Baker also is really, really good here. He doesn't quite see what's happening with Leela, but he at least knows that, there's a good chance that she might be leaving him soon. It's a really, really nice performance from Tom Baker, and you really could do quite a bit with it without it's a lot of fun. So Ellie, the episode's great. It's a bit slow in places. Again, that jump is really awkward. But overall, I'm going to give Requiem for the Rocketmen Part 1 an 8 out of 10. It is the 9th of April, 2019, and I just finished listening to Part 2 of Requiem for the Rocketmen. Now, Part 2 of Requiem for the Rocketmen, it's interesting because the second part of this story is going to be the next video. It's going to be Deathmatch. Spoilers, I guess, for the end of the video, if that sounds like a spoiler to you. But what's interesting is that with the way that this ends, that this story basically wraps up and decides to be a full story with this nice little cliffhanger that the Master's still alive and taking over everything. So a lot of this story was kind of, it was kind of useless. We didn't actually, finish. We didn't get a good finish, and this isn't we got a good ending. The day is saved. But that's just sort of because the cliffhanger undoes all that. Because obviously, the Master never goes away. He's still the Master, and you will obey him. Blah blah blah. Usual things like that. But what's incredibly interesting is that the story itself kind of really thoroughly defeats the Rocketmen. Almost like this is like a really good end to a trilogy, even though I haven't actually covered the trilogy. Because obviously they're just reasons where I don't. It's a really interesting just sort of trilogy because the Doctor seems to, the Doctor just sort of the day gets saved pretty easily. It's a very interesting sort of, we save the day quickly, mainly so it's it's one of those It's one of those stories where just um, where the plot builds to an interesting sort of conclusion, um, all done whilst doing, whilst still wanting to set up this second half for the story. It's an interesting sort of plot device, um, though a couple of odd things. Um, my question is, what exactly does it mean that uh, it, it just doesn't make much sense that the title is Requiem for the Rocketman. There's no real Requiem here. It's just sort of uh, um, it's just sort of an idea that, oh, this is a quote unquote Requiem because it's a reckoning. It should have more been called Reckoning of the Rocketmen, because it's just this would be the final appearance of the Rocketmen. The idea is that their empire gets defeated. Now, a lot of this also continues the nice flip flopping of the story, which perhaps would have, like, by running forward and backwards in time. It's one of those things where you think the story should probably be going. Now, one thing the story should have been doing is perhaps been going in a direction to have more time to actually flesh out a lot of the back and forth, because as it stands, it almost sort of just makes the pacing weird in the fact that this is only a 2-part story and not the full, 4 episodes that you perhaps need to do. Really, to do this type of plot, you kind of need more than one. You need more than one episode. So overall, I'm going to give Requiem for the Rocketmen Part 2 a 7 out of 10, because there's a really good cliffhanger here, and it's a lot of good stuff. It's just not perfect. Then we add up the scores to give Requiem for the Rocketmen a final score of 7.5 out of 10. Thank everybody for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. And join me next time when we take a look at the 4th episode in the 4th series of the 4th Doctor Adventures, Matt Fitton's Death Match.